Blessings, Divine Reflection! Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Idalis. I'm a healer, a psychic, and a purveyor of the stars. If you would like a personal session with me, links for that are in the bio. On my channel, I love to talk about esoterica, occult wisdom, and give you practical tools to help you along your spiritual journey. It's a beautiful thing. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the lost continent of Atlantis, the lost land, and its ancient civilization, where it was located, what life was like in Atlantis, the beings that inhabited this land, and kind of the darker history of Atlantis as well. And I'm also going to be giving you several ways to connect to the frequency of Atlantis. If you believe you have a soul tie to this continent, look no further. This is the video for you. If you're unsure, this is the video for you. Or if you're just, you know, a loyal subscriber and you watch my videos just for the knowledge, this video is most definitely for you as well. So make sure you stay through all the way until the end of the video, and I will see you in there. Okay, so let's first talk about the location of Atlantis. So Atlantis was a sea kingdom in the Atlantic Ocean and had the landmass of an entire continent. There were kings and governments and an entire society of people. The capital of Atlantis was called Poseidia and had crystal computers that could transmit information and energy throughout all of the land. Today's computers are also charged with elements from the earth, you know, and crystal technology, but the crystal technology of Atlantis was in a lot of ways more advanced than our modern day technology. In comparison to the Lemurians, which I talked about in my first Lost Lands video, which you should definitely check out if you haven't already, when the end of Lemuria came and Lemurians retreated to Atlantis, there was a bit of pushback because the cultures were so different. So in comparison to the crystal computers of Atlantis, Lemurians actually had crystal clans that would seed crystals into their own bodies. And when Lemuria fell, some beings secreted themselves into the land, taking with them the crystals and the information stored within those crystals. And you'll see later on in the video that this kind of tension caused by the differences in Atlantean and Lemurian culture became heightened as the Atlanteans saw the Lemurians as quite primitive. Also, the source for today's video is this book, The Lost Lands by Lucy Cavendish, which I'll link in my description below so you can grab a copy. Okay, so now let's talk about the appearance and lifestyle of the Atlantean being. So the kingdom of Atlantis housed several different types of beings that included animal hybrids from Lemuria, as well as, you know, a slew of different intergalactic beings from other star systems, specifically the Pleiades, as well as the Sirians. And walking upon the lands of Atlantis were elemental spirits. Everything from fae to merfolk and dragons, even unicorns, okay? And I'm going to explain how to connect to the energy of these elementals later in the video, so definitely stay tuned. The Atlanteans themselves had blue skin, some had scales or feathers, and overall the society was very technological, very much governed by a strict set of rules. They were very studious and would oftentimes be in temples, studying scriptures. And they were very philosophical as well and hard workers. This is in comparison to the Lemurians, who valued play and freedom and preferred to bask in Earth's pleasures and abundance. Again, the difference in lifestyle is going to cause a bit of a rift. Okay, now let's get into the history of Atlantis, its kind of reign, and its eventual fall. So even before Lemuria fell, there was what was known as the Golden Age of Atlantis, where beings from Lemuria, Avalon, and Atlantis existed in cohesion, in harmony with one another, and there was a vast amount of cultural exchange and exchange of information. And Atlantis actually began from a desire to create Lemurian outposts and spread the law of oneness and universal consciousness. When Lemuria did fall again, some beings did secrete themselves into the land, as Lemurians were shapeshifters. Some shapeshifted into birds, others into dolphins, and some into whales. And it is said that whales, the Song of Whales, encapsulates, the frequency of Lemuria. Lemuria's fall came out of a great flood, a natural disaster. Just for reference, some other places Lemurians fled to include Hawaii, Ireland, Scotland, the fictional island called YS. They retreated to the Lakota people, as well as the Hopi people, New Zealand, Australia, the Caribbean, Central America, and also various parts of the US. Those that took refuge in Atlantis were said to have been led by Prince Idon, and upon landing in the land of Atlantis, it is said that the sunset that he saw was so beautiful that he wished it upon himself, and at that moment his hair turned bright red. Therefore, all redheads are descendants of Prince Idon and Lemuria. And of course, upon meeting the Lemurians, Atlanteans were shocked that these beings were able to shapeshift and that they viewed life with such ease. In the beginning, there was harmony between the cultures, but eventually Atlantis came to a fall due to enslavement of the Lemurian peoples. Also, experimentation on the beings of Lemuria by dissecting them and DNA manipulation. I want to say that they created abominations, creating beings with like multiple limbs. They wanted to create their own artificial race of beings and figure out how Lemurians could shapeshift. There also began the misappropriation of the pyramid energy, as well as appropriation of symbols, the ancient symbols that Lemurians used. And to flee from persecution and from being experimented on and captured, right? Many Lemurians fled in the masses in Exodus. Some shapeshifted and, assimilated into Atlantean culture, and some even go undercover. Atlantis also fell due to natural disaster. Earthquakes and storms and floods also consumed the land. Beings from Atlantis fled to Greece, Persia, and Egypt. And the sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce actually mentions in his writings and studies and visions, he prophesies that there was hidden rooms under the palm of the Sphinx, which holds scriptures and old writings and teachings. So that's interesting. I kind of want to find out. I need to do some prophesizing myself. Next up, we have connecting to the energy of Atlantis. And there are a couple of different ways you can do this. The ways that I have listed out for you are listed in the book that I referenced, The Lost Lands by Lucy Cavendish. And these ways are by connecting to the intergalactic and terrestrial mythical creatures that roamed the land of Atlantis, of which there were several and that I'm going to name for you now. And due to intermingling of the various beings of Atlantis, you too might have the blood of, say, a fairy or a dragon or a centaur. Speaking of centaur energy, you can connect to the frequency of Atlantis by connecting with the energy of the centaur or with the meteor Chiron. So first let's talk about centaurs in Atlantis. So in Atlantis, the centaur, the beings that were centaurs in Atlantis, were scholarly figures of medicine, and they also had an affinity for music and for mentoring, and were oftentimes the heads of, schools and temples. The symbol of the centaur is both / and consciousness. It's both and, right? It's the rationality of the thinking mind and the embodiment of our physicality, but it's also, that representation of the spiritual and that which goes beyond and reaches into that which can't be defined. Now I have a bit of an astrology lesson for you. Chiron is actually a meteorite that entered our solar system around the 1970s. And in the mythology of Chiron, he is essentially abandoned by his father, never knew his father, and was also looked upon with disdain by his mother. Through this kind of pain of neglect and abandonment, Chiron is able to really hone in on his individuality and becomes a healer and a host of other things. He becomes a master of all trades, essentially. And what we can gain from this mythology, as well as, the energy of Chiron, is kind of that archetype playing out within our collective. And the 70s is also a really great example of Chiron energy, right? That kind of movement toward free love and embrace of our kind of carnality and sexuality, as Chiron was kind of born out of an unconscious lovemaking, out of a mistake, essentially, right? An accident, and was never really wanted. I'm sorry if this is, cutting a little too close to home. If you want to find out where your Chiron is, definitely hit that link in the description. So by connecting to your own sense of freedom of your sexuality, as well as the freedom to express your own individuality and kind of make yourself into whatever it is that you desire, is a great way to connect to Chiron energy, centaur energy, and the energy of Atlantis. Speaking of love and sensuality, a great way to connect to the golden age of Atlantis, right? The time before destruction and evil. You can connect to the state of vibration that existed before. And that state was one of love. Everything was love, and essentially we were in love with our environment and with each other. So connecting with goddesses of love and sensuality could be a great way to connect to the energy of Atlantis. So Aphrodite is a really popular goddess to connect to love and sensuality, or you could also connect to Oshun, who is an African goddess of love and sensuality as well. Another elemental spirit that you can connect to that was present in Atlantis is the dragon fae. Now, these were hybrid beings that were part mer being, part fae, part dragon, and part angel. Dragon fae were able to travel at incredible speeds across distances all across Atlantis and probably the world. They were also interdimensional travelers and could travel the galaxy. You can call upon the dragons to unlock new levels of your DNA. You can call upon dragons to unlock your DNA, and as well to find, precious jewels within you that are connected to your purpose, that are connected to your truest aspect, the part of you that resonates at a soul level. You can also call upon dragons if you need that extra boost of spiritual strength. Next up, you can work with literal fairies. So fairies worked with Lemurians to help grow and foster plants and keep them alive and thriving, and also were able to shift weather patterns. Fairies also could make their wings transparent and change the size and shape of their bodies, and could remain invisible to those who weren't sensitive to their energies. There are actually a numerous amount of fairy types, and I have an entire video all about the Fae Kingdom, which you can check out up here. It's like one of my favorite videos. You should definitely check it out. Included in that video are merfolk, which were also present in Atlantis, as well as a whole host of elemental spirits. Next up, we have redheads. So if you are a redhead, then you have a direct link to Lemuria, allegedly. Now, redheads, even though they are typically associated with the Nordic people and Celtic peoples, they are actually present all over the world, from parts of Africa and the Middle East to Phoenicia and Greece. If you have red hair, your link to that which is magical and mystical is ingrained within you. And then lastly, we have the unicorns, which were actually rare in Lemuria. The unicorn's primary function was to purify water and cleanse it of its impurities. And they would often do this with their unicorn horn, and can be found near waterfalls, lakes, underground springs, and fresh water, as well as deep within ancient forests. And you can connect to unicorn energy by connecting to the frequency of joy and love, as well as purity. Unfortunately, in Atlantis, unicorns were hunted for their horns because the magic of their horns could be used for, experimentation, and unicorns had to shapeshift into winged horses or Pegasuses and lived out their existence in Avalon. So now let's get into the search for Atlantis. So I believe the search for Atlantis is so widespread due to the popularization of Atlantis through Plato's writings, who was a famous Greek philosopher and mentioned Atlantis in his writings entitled Timaeus and Critias. In his text, he also mentions a priest who lived in Atlantis, an Egyptian priest named Solon. Explorers and seekers have scoured the world in search for Atlantis and this lost land. We have searched everywhere from the Caribbean to Chichen Itza to Greece, and no one has been able to find it. The fascination and obsession of Atlantis was also meant to be a supporting argument for Aryan superiority, at the start of World War II. For more information on that, you can definitely do your research. So, Atlantis definitely has a dark side. Besides that, what people are searching for is probably the truth of our early history. Beings of vast intelligence and spiritual attunement and connection to a greater universal force. Also, humans love a great unsolved mystery, right? However, Atlantis is not a physical place. Atlantis is a vibrational state of being. It's a feeling state and can be accessed at this very moment. Amazing! That is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. It was so fun to make. Like this video if you liked it. Comment down below how you plan on connecting to this ancient land. Share this video to spread the information and knowledge of this land. And subscribe. And I'll see you in my next video. Mwah! Bye!